My name is Braden Koritar. I'm originally from Manitoba. I got into aviation a long time ago. I was about 11 years old when one of my mentors got me into it. I was helping him fill and fuel crop spray planes, and just kind of always was involved with that and the farming and stuff like that. So started off at a pretty young age and got into fixed wing first, and then got away from it for a little while. So I was like 99% finished my commercial. Got back into it just a few years ago, and decided to do it on float planes in Kelowna. And I'd been in and out of BC a lot at that point. And once I kind of got in there, it changed a lot for me. So I ended up doing my commercial on floats, and then getting a job in Squamish flying fixed wing there, just tours and charters and stuff. And then after a summer there, being surrounded by all the helicopter pilots and the cool places to go actually land, not just look at, decided to pull the trigger and come here. One of my neighbors that I grew up with, and we did competitive water slalom skiing. We got to know him a lot through that, and then he had us working on his farm, driving combines, trucks, the whole 9 yards, just kind of like being a mentor to us. And he also had a crop spray company, and so he would get us involved in that as well. And yeah, it was definitely kind of my first exposure in aviation, and it was a really good one, because I got to see it kind of from a business owner's perspective, and someone who's very mechanically inclined, and so yeah, it was a pretty unique and interesting start. Once I finished my commercial on floats in BC, that was like a kind of a big shift for me. But I guess the reason I got away from that in the beginning, it's kind of a weird, convoluted story in the middle, because I went from the crop spraying, and then I started an aerial technologies company where I was making drones for agriculture, and I was doing a lot of R&D stuff for that. And as that kind of progressed, I started some other companies, and then eventually went back to the drone stuff and the multispectral imagery, and was switching it into airplanes. And that's what prompted me to finish my commercial, because I needed to write up an interoperator certificate and be legal. So I got into that, and that's when I went out to BC, and everything just kind of changed. And so let's kind of get into the industry for a little bit and kind of see how I like it. But yeah, as far as looking at a school, obviously I wanted to be in the mountains, because if that's where you're going to be flying, that's where you want to be, because it's just, you can't mimic it without being in the mountains. So there was that, and then just the people kind of thing. Like, I already kind of knew Sam a little bit, and then coming here and meeting some of you guys, and kind of the personality of the people and the structure of the school. Because it's like, you can have a great school, but if it's not run by the right people, it's not going to be near as good, for sure. Because especially with my fixed wing, I've been through 4 different schools, and you learn a lot about instructors and why they're there, and kind of the business models, and whether it's like a flying club, how that's operated versus like a strict business for teaching, whether it's large or small. So yeah, I just I hadn't actually known anybody who came here, and then watching Misha's videos online too was a kind of a kickoff point as well. So just over months and months, just kept kind of putting it all together, and eventually ended up here.
What would you say is most important about an instructor, or what things have impressed you most about different styles?
Really does enjoy teaching, and someone who is kind of likes the nuances of that, how people learn, where somebody's at, trying to figure that out, that kind of stuff, and knowing when to just let someone learn, and how much wiggle room to give someone, what they're comfortable with, stuff like that. So yeah, like doing my float plane training at Earhart was probably the best training I've ever had, just because I had an instructor there that was really on top of that kind of stuff, and was an extremely confident pilot, and knew when to step in, when to not, kind of was there to show me how far you could push things, and as well as keeping it all within like commercial standards and stuff like that. So it's yeah, I guess that would kind of be the short answer, because there's a lot that makes a good instructor for sure. And everyone's different. You could have a great instructor with somebody who their methods don't jive, and then things don't really come together. So yeah, like with Misha, it's been super perfect. Like we get along really well, and the training goes fairly fluent, just because of the way he presents it, and kind of the stuff that he'll let me do to practice, and then kind of picks out the little things, and yeah, it's been pretty awesome. So when I first got into aviation, it was something that I was really passionate about, and I just made the dedication to spend the time, set up a structure, and I ended up like doing a whole private in 6 weeks from having never flown an airplane, and just because I was excited about it. And I didn't really have a lot of methods at that point, which is maybe not even a bad thing, just because it was just pure excitement and determination that got me through that. But now, just kind of learning how to learn was a big one over the past years. Was how to use repetition when it's important, how to use different styles of like creating long-term and short-term memory and stuff, and what stuff's important, what stuff's pertinent. And then for like the hand and footwork, as far as being in the helicopter, I've done a lot of training and learning from professionals, like from motocross and competitive slalom skiing, and I've been really fortunate to be able to use like professionals, to like world-class professionals, to take some of that training in, and being able to have the awareness to, when someone tells you something, how to look back at yourself and go through and fix those things. Having, I guess the old saying is like neurons that fire together wire together. So it's way easier to get someone to show you once and mimic than it is to try and figure it out yourself. Like I could spin 50 laps on a motocross bike trying to figure out one thing, and then someone could walk up and just be like, just do this. And it's like, you know, I spent 50 laps, all that gas, all that effort, and they can do it in 10 minutes. And if you really work at continually, I guess, caressing that stuff properly. So like, one of the things I learned in classical guitar is for every time you do something wrong, it takes 3 times right to replace that, because your brain's always trying to constantly wire things. So when something goes wrong, and then recognizing when it's the right one, and then how to ingrain that, as opposed to just kind of using the old 10,000 hour rule, which is not, I mean, it's a thing. If you spend 10,000 hours at anything, you're going to be good at it, but there's also something called deliberate learning, and you can really fast track that. So I think aviation's in a really exciting time right now. Most people don't even think of it. We've all accepted it as like just a way right now, but like a way of travel, a way of kind of, most people don't see general aviation as kind of what it is. And I kind of learned that through just meeting all those people, and them seeing that it's not, they think it's going to be some gnarly roller coaster ride, but it's really not. It's like a legit sports car kind of thing, even though it's a little 172 or something like that. Like it's like aviation is barely over 100 years old kind of thing. Like it's infant as far as industry goes. There's a lot of opportunity right now, and it's growing at just a really fast rate, and there's going to be a lot of opportunities for growth, and whatever that, I mean, it's going to be up to every individual for what they want to go for, but I think whatever that is, if they want to go for it, it's definitely for everybody. I think the biggest disconnect is people think it's for the 1%ers, like people who just have tons of money to blow. Whereas it's not true. Most of the people that I do know in aviation either got a loan out for it or just barely scraping by getting through it. And yeah, it's just not, it's definitely feasible for most people that think it's not. So to just look into it, call up a school, find out what all it entails, If you had a specific industry in mind, do some research on that. But definitely check it out at least. Like, go for an intro flight. That'd be the number one.
Yeah. See what it feels like. And what's the most memorable so far? Like, do you have a particular flight that sticks out in your mind?
Yesterday was pretty epic. We went up to 7,000 feet in a G2 Cabri and went and parked on top of a mountain and took some photos, and then went and found a lake where we hung out. There was a bear hanging, a huge black bear hanging out there, so we went and checked that out. And then I think as I go through it, the kind of seeing the possibilities as I start to progress and see what's possible in these things is what's really exciting about it.